Every year, millions of Americans pack up their cars and head to lakes and public parks. These pristine recreational spots generate billions of dollars annually for local economies. But underneath the calm waters of over 100 of these man-made reservoirs sit the fully intact foundations of erased Black communities. Down there in the mud are homes, schools, and even unmarked graves. Most people know the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a violent white mob burned a thriving Black district to the ground. Less known is a government-backed mechanism called development-induced displacement. This is the legal process where the state forces people to leave their homes so they can build dams, reservoirs, or municipal parks. The creation of these reservoirs provided a way to physically remove these communities from the map, replacing homes and history with millions of gallons of water. The communities targeted for these projects were highly self-sufficient. They were built by people who had spent decades scraping together capital to establish their own independent economic hubs. Take Kowaliga, Alabama. It was founded by John Jackson Benson, a formerly enslaved man who worked in coal mines until he could buy the very land he once worked on. He eventually amassed a 3,000-acre empire that included a college and the first Black-owned railroad. Up north, Seneca Village provided a similar haven on the outskirts of New York City. By the 1850s, it was a rare sanctuary where Black residents owned property, which crucially gave them the right to vote. By securing property rights and thousands of acres of land, these residents gained a level of economic and political autonomy that local authorities often viewed as a direct challenge to the established social order. The removal usually started with violence. In 1912, white residents in Forsyth County, Georgia, used a false accusation as an excuse to lynch Black citizens and violently expel over 1,000 people from the town of Oscarville. The area was entirely purged decades before anyone even proposed building Lake Lanier. This animated diagram illustrates a quieter, legal tactic, eminent domain. This is the legal process where the government seizes private land for public use. Here, you can see private property lines being actively overwritten by a city mandate, while the payout given to the displaced owners drops far below market value. New York City used this exact method to bulldoze Seneca Village and build Central Park. One method relied on sudden terror. The other relied on bureaucratic paperwork. Both achieved the exact same outcome, stripping Black families of their land to create a blank slate for development. Whether enforced by a mob's crowbar or a city planner's contract, the system legally sanitized massive land theft. Once the land was cleared, the physical destruction began. Massive concrete structures, like the dams you see here, were rapidly erected to choke off river valleys. In Alabama, the power company built Martin Dam on the Tallapoosa River, deliberately flooding Kowaliga to generate hydroelectric power and create Lake Martin. In Oregon, the erasure took a different shape. Thousands of Black shipyard workers were redlined into Vanport, a segregated housing project constructed entirely inside a highly vulnerable river floodplain. When the Columbia River swelled in 1948, the local housing authority explicitly told residents they were perfectly safe. They weren't. The water broke through, scattering the community and destroying everything they had built. This pattern of displacement and flooding repeats across the American map. Towns like Willow Grove, Lewiston, and Susanna all met identical fates. The millions of gallons of water poured over these sites acted as a permanent, heavy seal, hiding the evidence of the theft from future generations. Today, eerie physical remnants of these towns still linger. Divers in Lake Lanier report finding unmarked graves, while local legends point to unrecovered bodies still trapped beneath Hales Bar Dam in Tennessee. This chart tracks the most lasting consequence of these floods, the destruction of generational wealth. The rising line shows the billions of dollars in revenue generated annually by these modern lakes and parks today. The flat line at the bottom represents the lost equity of the displaced Black families, who were never properly compensated. Now, modern legislation in several states actively prohibits teaching this history in classrooms, attempting to erase these communities a second time. Look closely at these stark concrete foundations sitting out in the open. They are lingering reminders of a thriving past, a direct contrast to the pristine recreational surfaces layered on top of them. The multi-billion-dollar industries now sitting on top of these sites were built on the seizure of Black equity, a transfer of wealth that remains